explain. Like most boaters, I like to do things myself if I possibly can, and I was really excited to find the Easy Snap site on the net. It's a DIY system for window shades for both RVs and boats and houses, actually. Shades are great on boats, primarily to keep the interior of your cabins cooler, and also keep the UV off your upholstery and your dash, and keep things from fading. I went ahead and measured things up and ordered the system, and I've installed part of it. I've got all the windows done on this boat except for this one and the windshield. And for the most part, their instructions are great. They explain very clearly how to do things and what to watch out for. So I'll just cover those off, and then we're going to actually make a pattern for this wraparound windshield. I've already got a pattern made for this, so we'll do second steps for this window as well, and go from there. So however you attach your cover, they stay on the boat. And there's two types. This is a peel and stick, which is most common for boats. The other type is it looks similar to this, but it's got a little screw, and it would screw in. So the key here is to remember that these stay on your boat and that they're visible. And the thing that struck me right off for this boat, because all my windows are recessed, they've got big heavy bulkheads around them, so I'm pretty much limited to sticking my covers on the glass itself. That's all well and good if there's a black strip around like this, because these would go onto that strip and they're not going to be too visible, and they're not going to be visible from the outside. However, if you've got a door like this, which is totally clear glass, and you stick these on, you're going to have black dots all the way around, and you're probably not going to want that when you're inside looking out using your boat. That's gonna stay there. So in this particular situation, I'm going to go outside to the frame, and these will work on glass, they'll work on gel coat, they'll work on aluminum, as long as it's smooth and as long as it's flat. So we've got some surfaces here that we can attach to, and this cover is going to go on the outside of this. That way I'm not going to be looking at these things all the time as they're once I'm inside the boat. This back window has got a black perimeter all the way around, so it's bonus. I mean, you can't see these things from the inside. I can't go out here because this door has to swing, slide past, and it would catch on the cover as well. So before you start, I think it's really important that you sit down and think about, okay, well, what's this all going to look like when it's done? How am I going to attach the stuff? And size your panels and and whatever accordingly. Here's a totally different style of boat. In this instance, the windshield is flush. It's a gray color. So if we were going to cover this, we would probably want our covers to go past the windshield, and our attachments would sit outside. We need to make sure that our attachments, that our cover was wide enough to be, to cover those attachments. The other thing to watch is that this window may look square, but I bet you money it's not. So that's why it's important to pattern. Even a window that you think is square is probably not. So getting the exact shape that you want, to size this, I would make little dots where my attachments were going, and then just make sure that I had a cover pattern perimeter that matched that. Now we're going to talk about patterning. The accuracy of your pattern dictates how accurate your cover is going to fit on your boat and how good it's going to look. For patterning, you need a pattern material, and there is a plastic that's specifically designed and intended for patterning. It's called it's called patterning plastic. It's called Durastrom is a particular brand name. But this is not just regular plastic. It's plastic with little fiberglass mesh filaments in it. So it's rigid. It does not stretch in either direction. It holds its shape. And that's very important because this cover material is exactly the same way. So if you use regular poly, just plain, you know, poly sheeting, and you stretch it around here and get it all fitting nice, you take that pattern off and build something onto a non-stretchable thing, it's probably not going to fit. So that's an important thing. The other thing that you want to have is that you want to have double-sided tape in order to keep the pattern in place once you've got it set on the windshield. What I found to be the best is good old Scotch brand double-sided tape. Now, they make two types. They make a regular double-sided tape. Don't get that because that's very difficult to get off after, but they make a removable double-sided tape. So that's the important keyword, removable. And this tape is just like it's on a dispenser. It doesn't have a backing. You stick it on, and it's a little bit sticky, but you just kind of give it a poke, 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 and there you go. It's sticky enough that it'll hold your plastic, but you can take your plastic off, put it on, reposition it, do whatever. So in my mind, after doing experimenting with all these different types of tape, this is what I would go for. Okay, so here we go. I left a few areas of this that untaped to just go through and show what I found really helped. So this is sticky on both sides, but if you just give it a little tap tap with your fingers, it will attach. It's not crucial that it be absolutely straight or perfectly in line or anything else. I'm going to do a strip down. I'm going to do a strip down here. Doesn't have to be right close to the edge either. I mean, what you need to have is you need to have it so that once you position the plastic and you want to mark and draw your lines, that you're going to have a stable, in-place piece of plastic that's not going to be flapping around in the wind and whatever. I'm just going to run a strip right around the middle here, because what I want to do is I want to work this pattern from the inside, from the center, out towards the edges. Okay, so I'm just going around, again, not being super fancy, just giving a little bit of an extra surface here that we can attach the pattern to. This material, it's available online from Amazon, but you need to buy like a huge amount of it. It's used for greenhouses and buildings and that sort of stuff, so it's typically sold in large amounts. I found small quantities on JT's Outdoor Fabrics. That's an Canadian online store, and it's 6 foot wide. You buy it by the yard, and that actually works because the Easy Snap fabric is also 6 feet wide and sold by the yard. So you can figure out how much material you have and get a corresponding amount of plastic. Pre-trim your plastic to about the right size, but leave yourself a generous amount, especially if you've got a curved windshield, because I don't know how this is going to go. When I pull on this, whether it's going to curve up, whether it's going to curve down, and if I just had a narrow strip from there to there, by the time I get around, it may be going up this way, and I may have a gap and whatever. The other thing that I did with this that I think would be helpful, because this is a fairly long strip, is I mark the center, and I mark the center of the windshield as well, and a trick for finding the center of things with a tape is, first of all, get a curved tape, a flexible tape, not a tape measure. You can start from a point, measure to about center, pick a number, 32 inches, mark that, go to the other side, measure 32 over, and even if those marks don't exactly align, midway between those two marks will be center. So that's kind of an easy way of you know, figuring out center. I drew a center line down my pattern piece. I've got my center line marked here, so that's going to give me a reference point for you know, for starting the pattern. So here we go. First time for me too. So we'll hope it all works out. I'm just going to leave enough room up top that I can fit it up there. Put it in place, and then come down to the bottom. Hopefully I can see my center mark through this. All right, so I've got my pattern started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to track it around in the center. I'm not going to worry about getting it top and bottom. I'm just going to track it around, and when I get and the main reason for doing that is I want to make sure that when I get all the way around here, that I've got enough plastic to cover. And it looks like I've got lots in all directions, so that's fine. If I'd have started too low, I maybe didn't have enough here or there. I just had no way of knowing how that was all going to, you know, was all going to fit there. So now that we've got that in place, we can start and do this. Now, this plastic does not give, and I'm going around a corner here. So what we need to do is that we need to cut little darts or relief. And now that I know that this pattern is pretty close and it's going to fit, I can trim off all of that excess material as well, which is going to make it a lot easier. So here I can just cut in with little cut marks. As we go around, and I can just pull this down and make sure that it's coming down nice and snug, and it's fitting flat and smooth on the windshield. That's not looking too bad. I'll go around a little bit farther on the bottom, and then we'll go up to the top. Get Mr. Windshield out of the way here. Thought about taking these windshield wipers off, but I looked inside and it looked like it was going to be a pretty hard thing, so I didn't. I'm going to trim a little bit more of this excess off. The beauty of a pattern is if you screw up, you've only wasted a buck or two worth of plastic rather than a fairly expensive piece of material that you'd have to order again in a small, you know, in a small quantity. Now, I want this to fit nice and snug around here. Boy, I was a little bit scissor happy there right at the bottom, but luckily it worked out pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to start back in the middle and just do the same notching that I've done up top and get this pattern to fit up into the top part as well. So we've got the pattern in place, and what I've done is just with a black marker, just marked around carefully the edges where I want my actual piece to stop, and I've done that on the top and the bottom. wrapped around, done it across here, across the end. So with that, our pattern is pretty much ready to be removed. What I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning up the line that I drew on the window itself. Cut it and get a nice uniform shaped piece of material. So I'll do this onto the material. So that's about it. One other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/2 inch to each end. And the reason I'm doing that is that I'm not 100% certain when I pull this heavier piece of material around with the fasteners in place, whether it's going to come up a little bit shorter or not. And if it's shorter, I want to make sure I've allowed some material. If it doesn't work out that way, I can just easily trim that little bit off. So I'm ready to transfer now. So for drawing on this stuff, so I'm just basically being very careful that my pattern is laid out flat, and I'm just drawing along nice and smooth and straight. We're done marking the perimeter of the pattern, so we'll take it off. Looks like we've got a nice continuous white line all around. So our next step is to start cutting this thing out. Because they're curves, we're pretty much going to be using scissors. I can use a straight edge and blade across the end, but everywhere else I'm afraid it's a curve, so that's not going to be an option. Okay, so we're done all the curved parts. I'll show you a much faster and more accurate way of doing the straight cuts. I know this is straight because it's the back, the back portion of the window. So if you've got one with straight edges, by all means, this is a better way to do it. Plywood or something underneath, so that you don't cut through onto your floor or your table or whatever. And then basically just like so. So that's quick and easy, and it gives you a really nice straight line. So before we can attach our fabric, we obviously have to install or put in place the fastening devices. These little peel and stick guys need a clean oil-free surface. So especially if you've waxed or put any kind of a treatment on window, you need to clean it. So isopropyl alcohol is what they recommend. I happen to have these lens cleaning wipes, which are just that. They're little sheets that are soaked in isopropyl alcohol, so they're already wet. I've pre-marked where my little dots are going to go, and that's in accordance with the recommendations from Easy Snap. They recommend approximately every 10 inches. So I'm not going to worry about cleaning the whole area. I'm just going to clean the areas where I know I'm going to be putting a fastener. So we go back to this window here. I'm going to be doing it on the outside portion. So I've got a mark there, I've got a mark there. So this is a bit tedious. We don't have to video the whole process, but basically I'm just going to go all the way around the boat. These cloths tend to dry out, but I have an extra little bottle of this stuff, so I just keep re-soaking this little towelette to keep it moist. and just working my way around. We're back on the boat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to place the, get our fabric onto the window. We've got our little pins already on our attachments. So we push those pins right through the cloth, and then we put a little snap over on top. So I've got my center here. So that's a fairly important one that I want to get correctly positioned, like so. So I've just pushed it through. I want to get my bottom pretty close to being on there as well. Push that through, and now I should have a pretty decent fit going across, and it's not looking too bad. So I'm basically just going to work around, pushing through, pushing the little pins right through the fabric as we go. You want to start from the center and work out, because if you don't, if you start it at the end, you never know what you're going to end up with in the middle, obviously. So in the online, which is good advice, is that they say do not tension this, do not pull it really snug, because counter to intuition, this stuff shrinks when it gets hot. So if this sits out in the hot sun, it's going to shrink a little bit. So if you've stretched it already on a hot day, it could end up putting a lot of stress on your fasteners. So our last piece is this door. I wanted to demonstrate a couple of things by doing this at the last. So first we're going to get the first pin through, which was not cooperating. Okay, so this is on. So what I wanted to point out here is that I've got, this is the handle that opens the door. And I didn't want to cut it on the pattern, because you could cut the pattern and then you could put the piece on and it doesn't fit exactly. And I wanted this to match. So a real easy way to mark a cutout is to just use regular Scotch tape, not the double-sided stuff. Stick it on. So with this tape on now, I could draw with a pen. I could just follow the outline of my cutout here. You know what? I'm going to put another piece of tape on it because I'm a little close to the edge. I didn't realize the outline went that far back. So I'm just following that outline. So that's a quick and easy way of getting a good cutout around something after you've got the thing in place, and then your marking doesn't show up. You can just peel the tape off and you're good to go. So we'll put our little clips on this one, and then we'll be done. So it's been a couple of days since we did the install here. Notice that it's much cooler
which was the object of the exercise. Also, I don't have to worry about my electronics and upholstery getting baked. All in all, I think it's a very, very good system. The stuff certainly stays on. We've actually went out in the boat with the back and side windows on, and no problem with them. No problem with them staying on. One note: be sure and use that little tool when you're taking them off. That would be the only caution that I would advise. But otherwise, great system. I'm very happy. Thanks.